and welcome to my channel. Today I have another ScanNCut versus Handcut, and it's for this. It's called a book flip card. So it looks like a skinny little book here, and you open it up. It has a concertina fold in the middle. It forms this, and it will stand erect, as you can see. This is the ScanNCut version that I did, and then this is the one that I hand cut. But it's the same idea, same dimensions. Again, with the ScanNCut version, which I'll be making in Canvas Workspace. So if you want to follow along and learn how to design this, plus I am going to be offering it as a free download for all you ScanNCut users, and you want to learn how to make the Handcut version, or both, I will leave, of course, the timestamps for when each section begins. So please stick with me and I'll show you how. I'm going to start by bringing in a square that I will resize to the card base size, which is 11 by 8 1/4. So I need to take the aspect ratio off, change this to 11 by 8 1/4. I'm going to also give that a bit of color. So I filled that now, and I also want to move it up onto the X and Y axis at 0, so it's squarely up in that corner of the mat. And even though, as you can see when I zoom in, it's beyond the cutting line, which is this red dotted line, it keeps it there in the corner of this 12 by 12 mat, so that when I place my score lines, I can get precise measurements. So to help me keep that in place, I'm going to go over to the layers, and I'm going to lock that down so it doesn't move about while I'm adding my score lines. I can go back over to Edit, and I'm going to just zoom out of this a bit. And I want to draw a score line. Now, I can do that one of two ways. I can simply hold on my Shift key and place that like that, or I can use my Snap to Grid as a guide to keep that perfectly straight, as you can see there. So if you just click on it, place it on the grid, it's going to snap it into place. And you can go to the display and do it that way, or you can go over to the artboard and you'll see it's text there. So it's on a grid spacing at the moment of 1 inch. So it actually follows along a 1 inch grid line. But we're going to change all these sizes anyway. And I'll go back to Properties, and I'll make all 3 of these score lines a dash line rather than just a cut line, just a straight cut line, so that it doesn't cut all the way through the card. And each of these is going to be 2 3/4 inch squares. So we want the height to be 2.75. I'll just ungroup those at the moment. So I've got these 3 score lines that I'm going to place Just move those out of the way for now. We'll put our first score line at 2 3/4. So that's 2.75 on the x-axis and 0 on the y. So that is our first score line. Then I want to take this one and I'm going to place it at 5.5 and 0. So it's there. And this last one is going to go at 8.25 by 0. Need to resize that one yet. So that's 2.75. All those are 2.75. Now the reason I'm doing it like this rather than just bringing the score line all the way down the full length is because we're going to have cut lines in here between these two squares. If you're doing this as a hand cut, you could just leave those score lines in there because they would be a guide for you, or you again could just place them between the grids. So I want to do another set of these score lines. So what I'll do is, to make it easy, I'm going to first of all group it and then duplicate it. Then I'll move it to the bottom here. So that means it needs to be, because it's 2 3/4 up from the bottom, then that means I'm going to move it down to 5.5 inches, as you can see here, and then 2 3/4, which is matches to the top up there. So this is the portion that's going to be removed in the middle there. So if you were hand cutting this, you could extend your score lines if you like and use them as a guide, or you could just come in and skip over this first square and it's only score between these, which essentially is what we're going to do now. But we need to put in our score lines for this side, and that's going to be again change that to 2 3/4, make it a dashed line, and then we'll go up to our X and Y axis again. This time we'll put it at 0, so it comes to the left, and it's going to come right to here. So we need to move that up to 2.75. And that's going to make our 2 3/4 inch square. We can just duplicate this. It's the right length. We'll bring one down here. This is going to go again at 0. And it's going to go at 5.5. Right, we'll duplicate that again. We're going to bring this over to this side. So that's going to be 8 1/4 because it's 8 1/4 inches wide. And then it will be 5 1/2 inches on the Y. So it's 2 3/4 and 2 3/4. We'll do this one again. Duplicate it. Then move it up to the top. There we are. 2.75 and 8.25, not 0. I don't know what I was thinking there. So 8.25 and 2.75. So this area here now is where our cut lines are going to be. So what I'm going to do is, for the moment, I'm going to select everything. I'm going to group it, and I'm going to lock it in place. So over into the layers, and now I have this group here, and this group here, and this group here. So I can lock that entire group down just by clicking next to the group symbol there. So those are not going to move while I'm putting in my cut lines. So the easiest way to do this is to go back and bring in a square and then just resize this. So it's 2 3/4 plus 2 3/4, which would be 5 1/2. So it's going to be 5 1/2 inches in width. And in height, it's going to be 2 3/4. And then I'll move this to 2 3/4 on the x-axis and 2 3/4 on the y. So now it's right in the middle, and if I just color that in, you'll see what's happening there. Then I'm going to select the background here and the rectangle and go down to process overlap and subtract. Let's cut that right out of the middle there. You can see now the score lines are there. So what I'm going to do is just select everything. Before I do that, I need to go back over to layers and unlock all those groupings. And then I can select and group all those. And I'm just going to move this out of the way while we work on the next part. And that's going to be the concertina, which is actually going to stretch from this square here on the left over to this square here on the right. For that, I'm going to need a square. And I'm going to resize that to a width of 11 inches and a height of 2 3/4. So it matches up in height to the rest of all these squares here. You can see there. Then I'll give that also some color. Place it again in the corner. And as I did with the other shape, I'm going to lock it down. Just going to use my snapped grid to help me get these lines straight. And these are 2 3/4 inches in length. So I'll resize that and change it into a dash pattern. And I'm ready to place that here on the concertina strip. And this first one is going to be at place this at 1 3/8, so that would be 1.375, and on the y-axis at 0. And the next is going to be at 2 3/4. So I'll just duplicate that. Change this to 2.75 and 0. And then duplicate again. This is going to be 5.5. Across here to make another, and this is going to be 8 1/4 and 0, and then finally duplicate that one. Come across to 9 5/8, which is 9.625 and 0. And there are all the score lines. So just zoom out a bit. And we can group all these. Then I'll just pull those again out of the way. Oops. Need to unlock that first. No, it's all right. It's unlocked. So we need to group all those, and we can move those out of the way, and then I'll show you the mats and layers next. I'm only going to make one of each of the sizes for the mat and the layer, and then also for the front and back. Then you can just bring them onto your cutting mat and make as many copies as you want, or you can just go ahead and duplicate them on your Canvas workspace before you bring them over. But I'll just show you sizes. So for each of these squares here, like you see here, they are 2 3/4. So the mat, if you want a mat and a layer, like a pattern paper, then your mat is going to be, go over to edit properties, and I'm going to maintain the aspect ratio once again and change this sizing to 2.5. So it's 2.5 by 2.5, and that will be your matte. So if I bring that over, you'll see. Let's take this off of the snapped grid. See, that is where that would be placed. Just going to duplicate that. And the pattern layer, the top layer, is going to be 2 1/4. So let's change the color on that. We can see how that is going to go. So that's just going to be placed on top like that. So you'll need, and depending on what you want to cut these out, you might want some of them out of different kinds of card or paper, or you might want them all the same. So whatever you decide on, you'll need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9, 10. You've got these 2 here on the concertina, and then for the main card you have the 8. So it'll be a total of 10 of each of those. Now to mat this area here on the concertina, you want a piece that measures, we'll bring this in. Actually, I'll just duplicate that. Change that size to, take off the maintain aspect ratio. And this is going to be 1 inch by 2.5 inches. So 1 inch by 2.5. It's going to go along here, and then here, here, and here. So that's that size. And if you want a mat for that, or a layer, I should say, a pattern layer for that as well, then you would just change that to 3/4 of an inch, so 0.75 by 2 1/4, 2.25. And then you would have that going on top of that. Just gonna line them quickly just to see what that would look like. And they'll go into that area there. Now for the front and for the back, you'll have the same size. One will be for your message and the other will be where you're going to put your decorations. Now if you want to have all one solid piece, or you want to don't want to actually use the same size squares, then of course you can just use the same measurement that I'm going to give you here, which is going to be, if I just duplicate this, this will be 8 inches in length, and it's going to be 2.5 inches in width. So 2.5 by 8 inches. Let's do it the other way around, 2.5 by 8 inches. And then you could have squares on here, like you do in the center. So each of those would be two and a quarter inches square, or you could use, actually you could just have the mat 2.5 inch. And this one on top. So this is all just a personal preference, whatever you would like. Or, as I said, you could just have this decorated as one complete piece, or you might even want to just divide it however you like. So if you wanted, you knew already that you wanted, let's say, the first part of this, maybe 3 inches of this to be one paper, and another 2 inches, and then you might have another 3 inches. So again, this is just your starting point. So that would be to cover this portion here, but on the outside, of course. And then you would have another of these that you would have in white or cream or whatever you want to have it, and that would be where your message would go, and that would go onto the back, which means it's going to go here on this last row here, again on the outside. Right, so those are all the pieces that you're going to need, and then the rest will be up to you to add any decoration that you like, any embellishments, any bling. So let's get all of these. See what the mat size. Let's bring all these onto the mat so that we can send those to the machine. I'm just going to put all of them in here, and then we can rearrange them once we get them over to the machine. And we've got this piece that needs to come in as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom to all objects on the mat. Looks like they're all inside, and they also look like they're all inside of that cutting line, and I'll be able to find out for certain when I go to export it or transfer it to my machine. And it's going to allow me to do that. So it means that everything is within that red cutting line. So we're going to transfer that. And now we're ready to cut out our book flip card and begin the fun part. I have all the pieces cut out now. Here's the main piece as well as the concertina, and I have also cut out the mats and layers, and I've already gone ahead and mounted most of those so that we can save a little bit of time, but we'll come back to those in just a bit. Let's work on the main piece first. Now we have these score lines here. I'm going to fold and burnish. So we'll have a series of mountain and valley folds. What I'm going to do is fold them both ways so that I can break down those fibers, make it a little easier for it to fold open. So, and we have a valley, a mountain, and then a valley. so. For the concertina, it's the same thing. We have these small tabs here. We should say rectangles there. And we have this square. We've got another square. And then finally those two pieces on the end. To be clear, you have a valley, a mountain, and a valley fold. So you have this shape. And with this one, you have a valley, a mountain, a valley, a mountain, and a valley. So you've got that sort of M shape there. Next, you want to apply your adhesive. And you're going to place one side here, like that, and the other like that. And now, I'm ready to decorate my card. So, as I said, I've got these pieces. Again, these were the... let's do this one first. This is the mat, which is 2.5 inches square, and then these are 2.25 inches square. And I have two different patterns that I'm using. I've already got the others already attached to each other, so I'm just going to finish these last two here. Just put them down like that. And then I have the pieces that are going to go into these rectangles here on the ends. And again, these I've already got some already attached. So I'll bring in these two pattern pieces that are going to go on here. And these are 1 inch by 2.5 inches. So then these are 7/8 or 3/4 of an inch. I'm sorry, 3/4 of an inch by 2 inches, or 2.25 inches. Put that there. And the rest of the matting layers that I have completed, and you'll see that I've also substituted a white 2.25 inch square for that piece. In fact, I've got two of those, I believe. Yes, I do. So I'm going to put these, first of all, these carousel horses are going to go into the corners, like that. Right? And then I have these pieces that are going to go like this One will be with these stripes going horizontally, and then the other going vertically. It is like that. I have these pieces which are going to go here on these ends like that. That one goes there. This one goes here, and then these two pieces will go into the center like that. So let's get these stuck down next. Before I stick that down, I need to put in my ribbon for my closure, and what I've done is cut two lengths of about 14 inches thereabouts, and I'm going to place that here. You could, if you wanted, have it come between your mat and your layer, but I'm just going to put the whole thing over that like that. So I'm going to use a little bit of red liner tape. That will hold that in place. So there'll be a length of ribbon on both sides. So just come in here. Place the ribbon down. Like that. And then I can put this down next. Let's go back over that. And that will hold that in. There is the inside, all the panels attached. It folds up like this. We have our ribbon closure, and we can trim that down. Now I'm going to work on the front, and for that, of course, I have this piece, which is my 8 by 2.5. And then what I'm going to do is to use these panels again in squares, and I think I'll have them go like that. Then I've got another one cut out of that same card, and I'm going to mount that with another layer, and then have this little saying on here: never give up on things that make you smile. Let's get these put down. That is down. And now I'm going to take a piece of white cardstock or paper that is the same size as this panel here, which is the 8 by 2.5. That's going to go on the back, and that's going to be for the message. I'm going to just leave it at this so that you get the idea of how this goes together. And it stands like that. And of course, you can decorate it however you like. You could even put little pockets on the inside if you wanted to have little maybe tags or notes that you could tuck in there. You could even do the same on the front. But then is your book flip card made with the aid, of course, of Canvas Workspace. Is the ScanNCut version, and there will be a link to the file for this in the description box. And again, that's going to be in the FCM format for ScanNCut users. If you have a program that will convert FCM to SVG, then you will also be able to use that. So now we'll go on to the Handcut version. I have cardstock, which I've cut into 11 by 8 1/4. This is an A4 sheet, so I only needed to cut it down in length because the width was already 8 1/4. And then in this contrasting color, I have another piece that is 11 by 2 3/4, and this is going to be the concertina. So the first thing to do is to make the score marks. And on the 11-inch side, we want to score it at 2 3/4. So 2 3/4. And we want to score it at 5 1/2. And at 8 1/4. So those are going to begin our series of squares. Now on this side, we want to score it at 2 3/4 and at 5 1/2. So that gives us 4, 8, 12 squares. But we will be removing this central part here. So you have the option of going ahead and just scoring to here and then skipping over, or skipping down, I should say, like this. So you would score down to the 2 3/4 mark and then pick it up here and score down here. But it's just as easy because you're going to be cutting this away. You'll cut those score lines away anyway, and these will then serve as a handy little guide for you. Now for your concertina piece, on the long side, you want to score this at 1 3/8. 1 2 3/8. 2 3/4. You've got those two end rectangles, and then now you're going to come over to 5 1/2, and that's going to be your 2 3/4 square. And again at 8 1/4, and then finally at 9 5/8. So 1 2 3 4 5. You'll have these two rectangles, 2 squares and 2 rectangles. And you're going to fold these as a valley and a mountain, a valley, a mountain, and then finally another valley. So it will form this sort of M or shape or W shape if you like. So it's going to come out like that. Now for this, we can go ahead and fold the score lines, and then, as I said, we'll use those, part of them, for our guide on where to cut. Okay, so the easiest way to do this is to take your scissors and I'm just going to turn it this way because I can see those score lines a lot easier on this side where the bump is. I want to be sure I remove these score lines as well. So I want to cut on the outside of that line. If you just fold it, like I said, that, then you can come up that score line, remove that, like that, and then on this side as well, you're just going slightly to the left on this side. You went slightly to the right on that. So now you have this piece. And then you need to cut that out. Now you could use a craft knife if you like, or you could simply come in with your scissors and again go up that score line just to the outside of it and remove it, and then swing over to this side, do the same. Right, so we have our centerpiece and we have our concertina. So this is going to be glued here, like that, right out to the edges there. All my mats and layers cut out, and I'll give you the sizes for these. These are all going to fit into the squares and the rectangles. So I've got a matte piece which I've cut in white. Now if you only wanted to have a pattern paper or even a solid, whatever you want, then you would just cut it at 2.5 inches square. But if you want both a matte and a pattern paper or a coordinating paper on top, then you would cut this at 2.25. So you've got 2.5 inch matte and 2.25 inch square for your layer. For the rectangles, we have 4 of these that are going to go on either side, and these measure 1 inch by 2.5 inches. And if you want to mat it, then you would cut your piece at 7/8 of an inch, or 3/4 of an inch, I'm sorry, by 2.25. To glue all these into place, and as I said, there'll be the mat and then our layer. Just going to go on like so, and then it will go down onto that square. And I nearly forgot to add my ribbon, which I need to do. Let's that here. Right, so I'm going to cut off a couple of lengths of this, about, we'll go with 14 to begin with. We can always trim that down. And do the same with this piece. And then I'm going to just put it in place with some red liners. Hold that down. And I can go underneath this mat here. So move the backing. I'll put the ribbon down next. One thing I nearly forgot is we need to attach our concertina onto here. Now, you could have the ribbon still under there, that's fine, and I think I'm going to do that. Or you could wait and then have it come over top of the concertina and then just have your mat over it. But I'm going to put it down now, and we're just going to take the glue. I'm using a strong adhesive here. This is the Clow. It's a multi-purpose. Just going to bring it out to the edge like that. And then these score marks will begin to match up because that's going to push over to the edge. These score lines will actually match up now. Okay, we're going to do the same on this side, and I'll put my ribbon down. Center of this concertina piece, I have these pieces which I've stamped, and one is with the sentiment of sending wishes or best wishes. Then I just stamped some little flowers and bees onto this one. Those are going to go right in the middle there. Then I will come back to this, but I'm going to go ahead and put the cover on. That's going to go here, and that is a piece, of course, that is 8 inches by 2.5 inches in width. And then what I've decided to do is to mat mine with another piece that is 2 inches by 7.5, and then I've got another little piece here which is cut at 2 3/4 by 2.5. But you can make this whatever you like. You could have, for instance, more of these squares, or let's say the 2 1/4 inch squares like that, however you want to make it. I'm going to start by placing this on the front, and then for the back you want a piece of card or paper, probably white or maybe a cream or something like that, so you can for your message, that is. And that is going to be cut the same size as this, which is the 8 by 2.5. Just going to pop that on there. A wider border there than I normally would have, which is fine. And then I'm going to bring this in, but I'm not going to put it in the center, as in the center here. I'm just going to put it in the center of this piece, but further up like that. It's almost a door. Looks a bit like a door, doesn't it? And then another piece of this same pattern paper. It's just a piece that I had left over. I've trimmed it down to 2.5 inches by just a little over 3/4, more like 7/8 of an inch, and that's just going to go right in the middle there. So, beginning to give it the illusion of depth there. Have this little die cut flower, which I'm going to add onto the front here. Put it like that. And then I've got one of my flat back pearls. Add a bit of glue to this. It has an adhesive backing, but I want to be sure it's not going to come off of there. So glue should help. Okay. Few more pieces to add. I'm going to put this on the front, and then for the inside I have some pieces chosen as well. These I'm going to put into the corners. So we've got a variety of little sayings. Get what you want. And we'll do wow. Put that up there like so. Don't think too much. Something you can overdo sometimes. So more or less little affirmation statements, and of course, happy. Right. Pull that up and press down, and then what I'll do is I'll wrap my ribbon around the back like that. Pull up the two ends, tie it, and make a bow here. always trim off any excess. Like so. Just trim these tails. Is our completed box flip card. Right, so just pull the ribbon and then open it up, and you reveal this lovely concertina, and it will stand just like that. You can continue to add other little bits and pieces, like here, for example. I think I've got some stickers I might place on there. I do hope that you enjoyed this tutorial today for both the ScanNCut and the Handcut version of this book flip card. And I think it makes a very nice little gift, really, more than just a card. And of course, I need to still add my white piece on the back for the message, which I can do a little later, just like I did here. So, thank you so much for joining me. I do hope that you are enjoying this series of ScanNCut versus Handcut, and that you'll continue to watch and support me. Please, if you aren't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to do so today. Don't forget to share with your friends, leave a comment, and of course, I always appreciate a thumbs up. Until we meet again, please stay safe and crafty hugs. Bye.